Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to create a new document. I've got some presets here. I'm just going to click this shirt 14 by 18. That's kind of the general size I like to create stuff at. I mean, obviously you can go bigger, so go ahead and put those settings in. Just make sure your DPI is at 300. And we'll hit create. All right, so let's, I guess, start importing some of our assets. So we're going to make a pretty cool Eminem bootleg here. So I'm going to start with kind of describing my thinking in the process. So I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to create a new fill layer, drag it to the bottom, and I've got a new pixel layer here. Fill layer I'm going to kind of leave alone. I'll just lock it for now. And in the pixel layer, I'm going to click on that to make sure it's active, and then I'm going to head over to brushes. I've got my default kit. I don't know if I'm going to release these. This is just years of me kind of, or not years. Well, yeah, definitely years of me sitting and creating kind of custom brushes. But this is just like a pencil brush. So this is kind of how I think of when I'm creating shirts like this. I want to start and really just kind of nail down the foundational idea, and I do that with just big block end shapes. So I'm thinking like text up at the top, maybe arcing. So I'll just create a box for it. Then I'm thinking like big portrait over here, maybe even like with shoulders or something like that, just over here. I'm thinking, let's see here, maybe like in a lot of the old bootleg shirts, you'll catch like a circle with a person in it, you know. So I'll maybe have something there. I'm thinking maybe like a background shot over here. Another maybe portrait shot here, and then maybe something here, just to kind of fill the space, and then text down here in a box. And honestly, this is, you don't have to spend a lot of time. Scribble this stuff in, because as long as you're kind of organized in your mind, you're going to move a lot faster. You're not going to do a whole lot of guessing. But this is basically how I think, and sometimes I'll come in and sketch it like this. I'll just kind of get things into position and use this as kind of a guide. So what I'll do is I'll leave that in here. Eventually I'll just get rid of it. But we'll go ahead and I'm just going to kind of turn down the opacity. I'll lock it. And we'll basically get started. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste my first asset in here, which will be this bigger one. And I'm going to work from the bigger shapes into the smaller shapes. I found this great shot of Eminem. He's got this really nice, American flag kind of leather shirt. Looked pretty cool. Looking pretty dapper here. And then what I'm going to do here is I want to try to keep as much of the shoulders as I can. So I'm going to size this down. I can size it up later. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask it. And then, just kind of brush this stuff out. So with a soft round brush, nothing special. I'm just going to kind of scroll down here. I'm going to make sure I have my mask layer active by clicking on it. With the brush tool, I'm going to hit B. And make sure I'm painting with black, because black's going to erase from a mask. And I'm just kind of going to roughly, I want to definitely get rid of these hard edges, so I'm going to just come in here and blast those away pretty fast. And up here, same thing, just kind of get rid of them. And there's so many different ways you can do this, but we're going to use I'm using a Wacom. And I'm just going to kind of brush this stuff out. And I'm going to keep it fairly generic at the moment. We can get a little tighter with it later. So I'm just kind of getting close to the shoulders and brushing this stuff out. And this is kind of the initial look that I'm looking for. So if you want to start and do something tight, you can do that too. So I'll go over that with you real quick. So let's trash that mask. Another way that you can actually do this is come in with the pen tool. And obviously, just kind of clicking and tracing that contour. Stay on the inside. Don't try to hover so close to the edge where you're getting this fuzziness, because you might pick up some of the background. So you're going to have to, what they call, choke it in a little bit, which means kind of an offset to the inside of the shape that you're tracing. So we'll just kind of come in. I'm not, just for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to move fast. So when we get to the neck, make sure we're staying on the inside. Go around this ear. So you know, you're going to try to want to hold on to detail. I have snapping turned on, that's kind of messing me up here. So you know, just kind of be a little crazy with it, not to where you're creating odd shapes, but you know, hair's pretty free flowing, even though you know M's got his hair pretty glued in this image. So let's kind of get around all that stuff. It's part of the weird buzz cut there. Keep it tight on the ear. Alright, inside of this last part of the jacket. And there, now we've basically got a shape. So I'll close the shape here, and we'll show you a couple things actually that you can do. So all I'm going to do here is right now there's a stroke applied to this. I'm going to swap it so that I have a fill. You could easily come in here and just, what you do to clip to a layer is click and drag the layer that you want to be the clipping object on top of the thumbnail until you see a little blue line to the right of the layer that you want to clip, to the right of its thumbnail, and then release. And you'll actually clip to that, so you'll have that really hard edge. But I wanted to show you another technique that you can kind of take advantage of, which is basically building out your own mask. So let's just go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rectangle here. This one I'm going to have black. And now with the shape that we've created of M, I'm going to come in here and make it white. Because if we're building out a mask, keep in mind that we want you want the things that you want to stay visible to be white, and everything else black, because black erases in a mask. And what's cool here is we can actually come in and use some adjustment layers. So I'm going to put a Gaussian blur, and with the Gaussian blur I'm going to increase the radius until I kind of get a fuzzy edge. So if I have that, then what I'm doing is I'm going to grab this trace out in the new rectangle layer. I'm going to group them, and then I'm going to duplicate them just in case I want to go back and do some edits. But the duplicate will turn off, head over to this one, and then I can go to layer, and we're going to rasterize to mask. And now we've got the mask kind of working, but you'll see we've got those fuzzy edges, but this is kind of where it's cool, and you can make some adjustments. So with that mask layer selected, we'll head over to adjustment layers, and we'll put in the levels. And then we're going to make sure to clip it to the mask. So I'm going to right-click the layer and select Mask Below. And with Mask Below selected, the way we can edit masks is you have to head to where it says Master and select the alpha channel, because alpha deals with transparency. Now, just like with the idea here that white keeps parts of the layer and black erases, I want to erase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump up the black in the alpha channel. And you'll see it's starting to decrease that edge. And then I feel like it's removing too much of the ear, so go ahead and bump up the white. So you're pulling back in some of the image. And you'll notice it's going to kind of round out edges and stuff like that. So, this is just one technique. You really pick the one that you want. But yeah, that's one way to do it, and you can kind of basically get them close enough to each other where you have a nice crispy edge. It's up to you how crisp you want it. But I'm seeing that as I've gotten them close to each other, we're kind of getting this weird dark contour to everything. That's because there's background, so that means I need to pull away. Actually, I need to pull away from the white and increase the black. Get that edge, and then so that looks pretty good. Now, like I said, because you're adding that blur, it's going to kind of round the edges essentially. So if that's the result you're looking for, great, you're done. If not, you can go in and basically customize the mask again by applying, rasterizing this again. You can head over to Layer, Rasterize Mask. No, actually that didn't work. So what you're going to want to do is just basically come into the mask, and you can kind of paint out. You'll see now that I have the brush active with black, you can see I can come in and it does some pretty cool stuff. But you can basically come in and start to erase a little bit more, and the levels will kind of take care of what it is that you're doing with a softer edge, which is nice. And you could do the same thing with white if you wanted to paint stuff back in. But yeah, that's one method. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And I'm going to head back to this mask. Or not mask, what would be a mask. Delete the Gaussian blur. And I'm just going to clip for now. So I'm going to just grab, let's get rid of this pixel layer it just added. That's the assistant warning me because I clicked. And I'm just going to click and drag on top of the thumbnail of the layer I want to clip it with. And that's pretty much ready to go. So whatever method's going to work for you, you know, you can get in there with the Wacom tablet. You can build masks or clipping objects and do that same thing. So I'm just going to kind of basically position this here, drag up. But yeah, you're seeing over here, I don't really need to keep this shoulder. So with that object active, I can also apply a mask. So now I can come in with the Wacom brush, now that I have the nice crispy edges, make sure I'm painting with black, and start to fade out, you know, this really hard bottom. Try not to get rid of, I like M's chain here. Let's get that going here, and fade out this edge too. So that's looking pretty good. And the best way to kind of see it is you're going to want to check it on a black background, because I'm going to do this on a black tee. So unlock the fill layer. Make sure we select black in the fill. And oh, I need to have my move tool active, so let's do that with the move tool active. So yeah, that's looking pretty good there. Just kind of get the position in a little bit, scale it up. Okay, that's the first one done. Let's move on to the next one. So I think I'm going to hit the circle one next. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that in. So now this one, I want to kind of have him jumping out of the circle, a little bit of overlap going. So here's our image. Let's grab our vector shapes. We're going to go to the ellipse tool, and then we're going to kind of drag out our circle. So I'm going to click and drag. It's going to initiate the circle. Then I'm going to hold Control to have it expand from the center. Now I don't want a perfect circle. I kind of want something a little more oval. That looks pretty good there. And I'm actually going to use the eyedropper while this shape is selected. Grab, click, and drag from that eyedropper in the swatches panel, and just kind of pick a blue here. And then make sure you click it from the eyedropper. Kind of keeps it in a pool here, waiting for you to actually press it to apply it to the fill. So now that that's there, I'm going to kind of size M here with the great hairdo into position. So I kind of want the bottom of him cut out. This shoulder and arm, I want it tucking into the circle. This arm and the top of his head, I want it kind of bursting out. So that looks good there. Maybe a little bit smaller. Yeah, something like that. So that's in position pretty good. So now we need to basically get this stuff cut out. So what I'm going to do is, I guess with the image layer selected, I'm going to hold Control and click on the thumbnail of the ellipse, which will give me a selection. Then what I'm going to want to do is make sure I have the image that I want to mask selected, and then head down to the mask icon and click that. So now you see it's the mask is taking care of a lot of the heavy lifting, which is, you know, getting him to clip inside the circle. Now we need to add back the arm and everything. So I'm going to do that with a Wacom and this soft round brush. So this time with the brush active, we want to paint with white. White's going to bring it back in. So I'm going to kind of be loose with it, because I just need to focus on getting this arm exactly where I want it. So yeah, you can do the same thing here if you want to do the vectors. I'm just going to kind of quickly get this taken care of with a Wacom tablet and just kind of tracing out the hand. And I'm not worrying about the fuzzy edge so much, because remember, we can always come back with levels and crispen up the edge if we want, using the alpha channel in levels. You can do the same thing in curves. You know, it just gives you a little more flexibility in curves. I like the simplicity of levels, but you know, if you need it, get in there with curves. So we'll just keep going till we get this arm basically knocked out. So what right now, this is another great feature. I know you can do it in Photoshop, but you can do this in Affinity Photo and Designer, which is their Illustrator equivalent. Is I have a shortcut set to this image rotation, which is shift and open and close bracket, but you can rotate, which is fantastic when you're working with the tablet. So let's make sure we get this nice and traced out. Moving pretty quick. All right, pretty good. Now you can see I've erased some of the image, and that's why I picked a color for that circle at the beginning. So now I'm going to use my hotkey to reset the rotation. So keep in mind, ignore my shortcut that I'm kind of dropping out there because it's a custom one. Yours is not going to be the same, so you can go in there and create your own. All right, so that's good. Now I'm going to add back in that section. Actually, we got to do the hair, but I'll show you how we're going to add in this section of the image that we lost. So yeah, let's paint with white again. So I kind of go overboard so I can find where it is that I need to erase from. And then I'm going to paint with black and erase. So we'll just kind of get in here, keep it pretty rough. So it's kind of hair. And it's nice and erased, but you can see we've lost some of that image. So all we have to do is hold Control, click on the thumbnail for the ellipse shape, make sure we have the mask active, paint with white, and then we can add those edges that we lost back in. A little bit there, and a little bit down here. And we're good to go. And now the last thing that we need to add, and I like to kind of keep them separate shapes, is, you don't have to, is with the ellipse you can add a white stroke. So we'll come in here. I'm going to hit P for pen tool because in photo you don't have a dedicated stroke panel or studio. So with the stroke, I can come in here, make it white, and then I can head over here to the actual stroke width and go ahead and increase that. And you can also set how it aligns. Is it overlapping? Is it going to the inside or to the outside of the shape? So I'm going to do outside, and I'll increase it till it looks good, which I'll just go with something thin. But I like to keep them separate, so what I'm going to do is in the Layers panel, I'm just going to duplicate that shape, head over to the fill, and turn off the fill. And over here, I'm going to head back to the original one, click on the stroke, and turn off the stroke. Okay, cool. So now that that's basically done, I'm going to grab all three layers and hit Control and G to group. I think it's Command G on Mac. And then, yeah, you can see we can basically mess around and scale that down. So I'll probably drop that down here. Something like this. Okay, so I'll turn this off for a second, and I'm actually going to head over to, I think, Document, and turn off Transparent Background to remove the checkerboard. And we can see our sketch. So yeah, we're moving along. It's not perfect. We're just kind of, like I said, using it as a guide. And then I'll turn this back on, and we need to move on to our next asset. So the next one, I'm going to kind of work the background now. I'm going to work the background moving towards the midground. So what I'm going to do is, copy and paste our next asset. Okay, so I got it copied, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it in. And this is M when he did a thing with the Ninja Turtles, which is pretty cool. I think that kind of shows the history there. So I'm going to basically pop this in, and this one we're going to kind of keep rough, and I feel like we're going to maybe need to head into adding in the text to kind of get this in the right place. But let's just go ahead and get rolling here with the mask. So same thing, add a mask to that specific image layer, and activate the brush, paint with black. That way we can erase. We want to get rid of this YouTube line because it's just basically a screen cap. And I kind of like the purples in the background and stuff, so we'll try to hold on to as much as that as we can. But this top we need to lose. Don't want that hard edge. And maybe something like that. That's pretty good there. Okay, that one's pretty easy. That one's pretty much done. So I'm going to kind of drag that in place. And we can flip and see what that looks like. Yeah, so, we definitely want to hang on to the Ninja Turtle. So I don't think I really need that arm, so we'll just kind of push that back. Just need the smiling face. Okay, moving on to the next one. So let's get that copy and pasted in. And I think I'm going to go with this one here. So he's got that nice hand symbol going. So I'm going to push this out to the edge. I actually don't need, he's got this guy in the background. We're just going to hit the mask. with the brush active, painting with black. And in here, I just kind of start to lose this edge. So you can see now we've got this Ninja Turtle here, so we'll try to keep his head in the best we can, and then we also want to get rid of the top of this image the best we can. So I'm going to hug that hair pretty tight. And I don't know if I want to keep some of the background. Now, you know what, we can lose it. That'll be kind of a soft edge that we lose. Same thing here. Just kind of lose some of that. I think the main point here is just holding on to the portrait as much as we can, so I'm just kind of brushing in like we did the other ones. Because we can always come back with levels and adjust those edges if we need to. So that looks pretty good there. Faded edge. So now that that edge is gone, we can kind of size him up. So make sure you're not on the mask. Make sure you're on the actual layer. Otherwise, you'll just be moving the mask. And bump that up. And as I'm doing that, I can see I've missed a little spot here. So we'll go back into the mask. The brush tool active, painting with black. Just get rid of that. Yeah. And that's probably something you can kind of clean up. So yeah, here's a little piece up here. I don't know if you can see it. It'll zoom in. That edge there. So that's another thing that you can kind of tighten up. So let's actually just we'll go ahead and tighten up. So I'm going to Control L, which is my level shortcut. I believe that's the same default one. If you don't, you can activate it yourself. So then I just dragged it and clipped it onto. I'll move it out. We'll do that again. Click and drag the levels adjustment onto the thumbnail until you see the little blue line to the right of the thumbnail of the layer that you need it to clip to, and then release. It'll clip to that. So double click, activate the levels, change the channel to alpha because that deals with the transparency. And then we can bump up to black to kind of push it in. You'll see that edge start to recede a bit more. So that's pretty good. I don't want it too harsh, and then I'll bump the white back in just to kind of make sure it's not too rough there. We're not losing a whole lot. So that's pretty good. I've kind of kept the two things that I want. I want to make sure I got the headshot, and we're trying to keep the hand. And the other funny little happy accident is we've got this Ninja Turtle pointing at Eminem too. All right, so I think the next one, and probably the last one, we're going to kind of fill out this gap here. So we'll go ahead and let's see here. So we have this one in the background. This one's next above it. So I think I'm going to want it. You know what? We'll see. I will paste it above this one. So I'm going to click on the furthest back layer image, and then this one here. And he's got this great design going shaded into the side of his head. So and he's pointing that he's number one. So the jacket's pretty dope. So we'll try to hold on to that stuff, but I'm going to try to get him to kind of land right in this area. So we keep the face here, keep the face in the pointing there the best we can. So that looks pretty good there. And this one we're going to keep pretty rough too. So I'm going to hit a mask on that layer, activate the brush tool, hitting B, and make sure we're painting with black. So this one, same thing. I'm just going to kind of get to the edges quickly, get rid of that stuff, and then I'm going to kind of move in tight. So definitely don't want this guy's face here in the background. And it looks like, let's see here. Looks like he's got a straw he's chewing on. It's got a little shadow there. So we'll try to keep that, but I think we'll just lose that little piece right here. So yeah, we'll just trace this hand out pretty tight. You probably hear the keys going nuts when you're using the brush. Open and close brackets can size up your brush quickly. If you can hear that, you can move pretty quick doing that. And over the years, it's just you get super fast at doing it. So with the straw, I don't think I need to lose. I mean, I definitely want to get rid of this car here. But the cool thing is we're on a background. There's a little bit of background to this image still there that's dark. So we don't got to go nuts and be perfect about it. So we're just going to kind of move quick. But the face is pretty important. So you're going to want to probably spend a little bit of time being careful there. And the hair too. He's got this nice awning. Probably, if it's raining. Great way to keep the rain out of your eyes. Yeah, so we're trying to hold on to the most we can here. It's being pretty rough though, moving quick. And trace out the back. And I guess see the, yeah, and you can see here, that's got to get trimmed out there. I think that's kind of important. And definitely the rat tail here. So I know growing up, if you had a rat tail, you were pretty badass. So we're just moving along. And then here you can see the darkness we just kind of lose. So I'll kind of leave that alone, let it do what it's doing. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. I think we got rid of our edges. I'll just kind of, whoops, see, that's the mistake you can make. If you have the mask selected, you're just moving the mask, so make sure that you're moving around. So I also like to move just to kind of check to see little spots I missed, and you can see there's 2 little black spots here. So I'm going to go ahead and undo, come back into the mask, and make sure I get rid of that stuff. And you can do that with levels and adjusting the mask. So let's just go ahead and do it. Click on the image, Control L to get my levels, click and drag and hover on top of the thumbnail, basically right in the middle of it, and you'll get that nice little blue line, release. So now you know you're clipped to it. With the levels panel open, go to alpha so you can adjust it, and then we'll just increase the black. You'll see it tightens up that edge. And if you feel you're losing a lot like this, I can see there's something here. Nope, let's go into the mask. No, that's in the other image. Double click the layers to bring it back up, or not layers, but levels. Go into alpha, and then we'll just kind of increase the white, and you'll see that some of that finger's kind of coming back. Okay, pretty good. Pretty good. All right, so yeah, that's enough. I feel like I definitely want to increase him a bit more, and to do that, I'm going to have to lose that shoulder for the most part. So I'm going to click into the mask, get my brush activated, soft round brush, and this is something default. It's nothing special. Make sure I'm painting with black, and then we'll just kind of... So I'm basically kind of thinking of an edge here. I'll just use this box to kind of show you what I'm talking about. I definitely want to keep this edge of hair, so anything that breaches that hair can disappear. So let's color this in with white for a second. So anything basically in this white area is fair game to get, erased. So I'm going to delete that. So I'm not worrying too much about this edge here. So go back into the mask, paint it out, soften it up. Maybe just a nice soft fade there. And that will allow me to click on the layer so that I can then size it up. So we'll bump that up. Yeah, I actually like that a lot. It kind of got the back of that jacket going too. And I can kind of push the edge a bit more. Drop him down. So yeah, that's pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to grab everything, group it, and then I can move it all and know it's kind of hugging in there. And then I think what I'll do is, I think we have levels. No, we don't have levels on this. So on the main portrait here, I'm going to hit Control L, right click this time, mask below. So whatever method you like. You can do the dragon if you like. I'm going to go to the alpha, bump up the black. It'll kind of pull it in a little bit, and then maybe just a little bit white to get some of that back. Okay, that's pretty good. So at this point, I don't need this pixel guide anymore. It's just kind of pointless. But we did find something here, and that's in this image. So this is, I guess, another good way to kind of do a little extra cleanup. So let's do that. So I think it's this layer here. With the mask, I can just click it here, and it'll drop down the layer and expand it out so I know that I have it selected. Get my soft round brush, make sure the tool's active, paint with black, come in here and just get rid of that. And some of this I can kind of adjust a little bit to soften that edge. Maybe around the ear a little bit more. So yeah, if there's any other corrections you kind of need to do, get them done. Get them done on the white background. So I'm going to select the mask on this one and just get rid of that black edge there. And soften that a little bit more. Or soften. That's what I meant to say. Okay, so now that that's done, turn my fill background back on. Move tool, just kind of move this in place. All right, so I'm going to actually drop it down a little bit. I want to leave a lot of room up here. So, yeah, I'm going to pull open. I've got a little reference here that is just going to kind of show you guys some of the popular fonts that get, that were used a lot back in the day. And it was just basically system fonts, stuff that was easily available. Okay, so this I'll probably have up on the website just as a reference guide, but these are essentially like the most widely used even now when people are creating these modern bootleg shirts. These are the fonts. So I think with this one, I think I'm gonna go with this chalk standard here. But yeah, you guys will find this kind of reference guide here. And just as a disclaimer, this one here is my own kind of recreation of the iron-on letters from back in the day, a black letter iron-on. There were certain features that I wanted to make my own, and I did. So you can that's a purchasable font on the website, Old English. Um, yeah, so like I said, we're going to use, I think, chalk standard for the top, and I think I'm going to go wide Latin for the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to close that. So let's get started. So up here, we want Eminem. And for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to speed things up. I'm also, I have a style kit that'll be on sale. Right now it's a bit of a mess, but I'll make sure it's tightened up, and you guys will have access to that if you want to purchase that. But it's going to have a lot of stuff in the initial kit. Not all this stuff that you see here. It's going to be separate kits. Some of it's going to be metal stuff, all sorts of things that I've been working on over time that I'll share with you guys. So yeah, let's before I apply the style, let's get our font. So I'm going to head over to the character panel, and I'm going to type in chalk standard here. It's pretty good. And yeah, you can leave that straight like that if you want to, but I think I'm going to add a little extra to it. So what I'll do here is I'm going to close the character panel. What I'm going to do is just stretch it out, and then what I'm going to do is apply a mesh warp to it. So once you activate that mesh warp tool, it's basically getting prepared, and then what I want to do is just add like a center line here that I can adjust. So I'm going to click here and then click one more time to add that line or column there to the mesh. And then what I want to do is just kind of click and drag it up. Something like that. Kind of want to make sure it's as straight as I can. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then just hit apply. Now that that's kind of warped to where I want it, I'm going to drop it up here. That's pretty good. And then the style that I want, it's a pretty standard look for a lot of these bootlegs. That's this one here. Let's see here. And we actually, now that I realize it, so you can see that that's the pixel layer, but I want to, with these styles, you're going to want to take advantage of the seamless patterns that I have built into them. So like for example here, I need to add in something that I can apply a one of those seamless patterns to, because you can do that in Affinity with this gradient tool, which is really neat. So I'm going to add in this vector rectangle, and then I'll hit that style again, and you'll see it kind of drops it in. And then I'm going to drag and drop on top the clipping object, which is the text. And it's pretty straightforward. So as long as you set that up initially, you're pretty much good to go, or keep editable text. So for example, if I do this Eminem, drag this in, and we go back to character style, chalk. We've got that there. So if it's editable text, you're good to go. Just click it, and there's not too much else that you have to do. But if you don't, and you do any of this kind of warping stuff, you have to basically create a vector shape, apply the style, and then just make sure you clip it, and the styles will react to the clipping mask. And then what's cool here is with the gradient tool, you can click it, and you'll see if you select the rectangle, which is the tool that has the seamless pattern applied to it, you can kind of drag that around. And you can also scale it to the size that you maybe want that. The cool thing is you can also rotate it and basically move that around to wherever you want. And at any point, you can also change by clicking bitmap, and it'll actually bring up your file menu, and you can place it where you want. The other cool thing is you can unlock how the seamless pattern's working, and you can also change the extension mode. So if you wanted like mirroring, depending on what it is, if you've got like metallic gradient or something like that. And then the quality you can change here. Bilinear kind of adds a softer blur. I like to keep things nearest neighbor, so it's not really playing around with the pixels at all. But yeah, so we can unlock, and you can see here, you can actually stretch it down if you want, expand it out, you can make them longer. I find it really awesome. It's just it behaves better than Photoshop. There's limitations to the Photoshop version, and Affinity's only going to get better. It is missing, vector envelopes and stuff like that. But in all honesty, if you know what you're doing and setting things up for print, it's really not a problem at all. It's just a limitation for people that don't understand the printing process all that great. So now the other thing that you can do here is it's got this kind of glow going, and I like that it knocks stuff out. It's not really playing well with anything. But to change that, I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this styles panel here for a moment. Click on the style itself, and then you can adjust any of the settings. So a lot of this is just to get you moving fast. You don't have to waste a whole lot of time. You get a lot of work done quickly. And that's basically the outer shadow. So the outer shadow blend mode right now is set to normal. So you can change that, and screen's probably going to work because that'll leave it'll leave the effect that the lightness of that color has. If you dip any darker than that, it's basically like it doesn't exist. So the lighter that you have that, the more of that effect you're going to have. So if you don't like screen, just kind of scroll through. Photoshop took a note from Affinity and decided to finally do an instant preview when you're switching through this stuff. But yeah, you can basically hover till you find the one that you like that works well. Difference is kind of cool, but when it hits certain colors, it's going to divide that color by the other color, creating some weird color effects. But that could be exactly what you want. But I'm actually going to leave it on normal and just kind of drop the opacity down maybe a little bit. Bump up maybe the intensity. And hit close. So that looks pretty good there. I might just get this all the way up to the top of the edge of the document. Gives me a little bit of room. I can always drop this down a little bit there. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then let's move on to the next text. So I think I said I was going to do wide Latin, and then we'll just here do, let's do the real slim shady. And I think I'll center this, and then we'll head up to the character panel. Head over here, and we'll do wide Latin. Okay, cool, size that down. And you know what? I think with this one, I'm going to do all caps. So you can head over here in your character panel, and right here, the two T's right here that look all caps is exactly that. It'll do all caps. And I'll just kind of size this and place it where I want it. So let's see, I've got the real Slim Shady here. Let's see what it looks like just kind of stacking like this. And then I'll come back and delete. Delete. Nope, that doesn't look good. That needs a space. Yeah, that's not working. So let's try enter here and then delete back on that. That's not bad. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. So I definitely want to kind of balance it to the edge of this. So just bring it up here for a second, scale it, and then hold shift and drag it down. And then I can apply the style. So, okay, so with this one, I'm going to grab and activate the gradient tool, and I'm going to drag this out. And you'll see right now, this is just a bug in Affinity. It doesn't show initially, but if you just grab that tool, you can get it to appear. And then what I'm going to do is it's stretching right now, so I'm going to lock the aspect ratio, and then I can actually scale the whole thing down. And I basically want it, small enough so you can have some nice, so you can see the diamond plate, and maybe add a little bit of a rotation to it. So that looks pretty good there. Yeah, so that I think looks fine. I think that basically kind of covers what it is as far as text and everything and all the assets. So the next step is we're going to be moving into color correcting and kind of making this look vintage. Okay, so let's just grab our layers here, group them all together, label that design. And then also please make sure to save. So if you haven't at this point, let's go ahead and do it. So let's just head over here And we'll do save as just to kind of show you. And now I'm going to do an overwrite. So, okay, now that that's grouped together, we're going to basically hop into harmonizing the color and giving it that just kind of aged feel. So, you kind of have to think. Basically, what's going on is obviously the ink that gets thrown onto a shirt is going to age, and as it ages, it's going to crack. We're not going to worry about cracking right now, which is distressing. But the inks themselves, they're going to age, and just like painting or oil paint stuff like that, as ink ages, it's kind of it's going to head more towards the yellow because of the bonding agents and everything that are mixed into the inks. So that's the stuff you have to keep in mind. So let's, I think it's pretty simple. Let's head over to selective color right here in the layer adjustments. And we're going to have to play around because every one of these images was, kind of taken with a different white balance kind of going on. It's like this paparazzi photo. This is a film, cinema camera, all sorts of strange things going on. Like this image feels more yellow than this one over here. So we're going to have to probably tweak those at the individual level, but we want to get an overall harmony. So let's start. We're basically going to head into every one of these color channels and make tweaks. So let's start with the red one. So red, I feel with the vintage stuff, the red definitely fades over time and it almost gets cooler. It's like a colder, bluer red. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment. So we're basically going to be mixing in these four colors into the red channel. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to throw a little more blue in, maybe a little more yellow, and I'm going to decrease the magenta. But I'm also going to brighten it up. I'm going to remove some of the darkness from that red. That looks pretty good, but I feel like that's heading more towards orange. So let's pull away from the yellow. Yeah, that's pretty good there. Maybe throw a little more magenta back in. See if we add more cyan. Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. So reds are done for now. Let's head to yellows. So now with the yellow, it's just going to get more yellow, maybe even orange, but not a crazy amount. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm actually going to darken the yellows. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Darken the yellows. Let's drop a little bit more in. Let's see here. That's pretty good. So let's actually pull away the magenta. Let's drop in cyan. It greens them too much. Yeah, let's pull away the cyan. Let's see. Let's go crazy. Drop a whole bunch of magenta in. That doesn't look terrible. Yeah, I think that's pretty good there. So I think magenta and yellow are going to get about the same amount. Pull away from the cyan. Let's head into green, and a good way to test if it's even in the image. I didn't see a whole lot of greens in here, but the Ninja Turtle. You can grab the black and just kind of slide it and see if it's affecting the image. If it's not, there's really nothing in there. I would just avoid editing. Let's move on to cyan. We can do the same thing. And you see, yep, we definitely got some stuff in there. So we'll start back from 0. And I think I'm going to brighten it. And let's add in some magenta. Actually, no, let's pull away. I think it looks a little better when it's heading more towards like a green color. It's almost like yellow getting mixed into it. Let's pull away from cyan a little bit. Let's throw in... Nope, that green's out. I could see down here, for example, if I throw in more yellow, it's greening this out too much. I don't think I want that. But again, this is all subjective. It's up to you. If that's something you want, great. Do it. So cyans, let's move to blues. I think we're going to get a lot of action in this layer, so let's see what we got. So, you know what? I think I'm going to darken those up. I'm going to throw in some yellow. I'm going to decrease cyan. Nope, that's a little too much. Pull away from magenta. Let's see what we get. Okay, that's looking good. I like that these are now matching with the top a little bit more. They feel like they're a bit more separate when I'm throwing in the magenta. But I like this. This definitely feels like a faded out blue. It's kind of yellowing over time. Then let's head to magenta. We'll probably get some action here too. Let's just kind of pull that. Actually, not a whole lot. So let's darken that one up. Let's pull away from magenta. Add in more cyan, and let's try adding in a little more yellow. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think that gets that matching the initial red. That's pretty good. All right, now we're moving on to whites, neutrals, and blacks. So the whites are going to be your highlights, the things that are white. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to dip it down a little darker. And you can see it just kind of like here. There wasn't a whole lot. The highlights generally weren't too fantastic on like bootleg shirts. So if you like, you can see you get a lot of brightness here. You're seeing, you know, the skin tones and the highlights. If you pull away, it really kind of gives that bootleg crappy separation, screen printing separation look. And then let's see, yeah, I think not too much yellow. We got to be careful with this one. Let's pull in some magenta, and then do some cyan. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Let's head into neutrals. And neutrals, this is going to be kind of your grays. So that there's going to be a lot of effect with the neutrals. So, you know what, I'm going to pull away from magenta. I'm going to we don't want to over yellow. Let's see if we just pull away from cyan. Yeah, it's going to warm up the whole image. Throw magenta back in. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And at any point, if your eyes are kind of adjusting to the look, head over here and just turn it off and on. See how far we've come. So that's the original. This is kind of what we've done with selective color. And then let's hit the blacks. So, yeah, there's definitely black going on in the image. So you can see, we could take the black and pull it more to a washed out black shirt to see what it feels like. And I actually kind of like that. So let's pull away from, nope. Actually, we don't. You know what? In the black channel, I think that's enough. I think adjusting these 3 color bars here are just going to add too much. You can see here, just a tiny touch makes that like a purple shirt. So let's just leave those at zeros. And I think really here, you're just going to want to play with it till it looks where you want it. Now, if you don't want to affecting the fill, just take the selective color and clip it to the design. So you'll keep the shirt color. So we could honestly take the fill color, throw that into like a yellowed, washed out kind of vintage shirt. Hit close. We'll double click on the selective color adjustment layer. It'll bring it back up. Then we can head back into the blacks and make the black adjustments. So you can see we could completely remove it if we want to. And keep in mind, we have this set to relative. You can get some funky stuff happening too if you change it to absolute by just unticking that. But let's just pull away from those blacks. And that's pretty good. And I'm going to duplicate this layer just to show you what happens when you do absolute. So we'll turn that off, and you're going to see it's going to be a lot more destructive. So if you're targeting like your whites and you throw them into black, you're losing them completely. I honestly should have started in turned off relative, but it's fine. You get the idea. And we might go into that in a later video. But that right there, I think, puts the finishing touches on the color adjustments to kind of get this feeling a lot more vintage. So now we're going to move into basically finalizing this image here. And I'm just basically going to distress it out. You don't have to do this. You can kind of keep it clean. But let's go ahead and move into that. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to duplicate the entire group, turn off the original, and keep that. And what I want to do here is just apply everything by rasterizing. So we'll go to Layer and Rasterize. So now the selective color and everything is final. It's in this image now. So what we want to do is head over here and apply a mask. And now I have a brush set available. You can basically, you know, this is pretty easy stuff to do. There's tons of videos, and I'll have probably another video coming out going really detailed into masking. But I'm going to use, I have a kit here. It's called the Press Effects, and this is already on the site. This is something you can grab. And basically what I'm going to do is just select some of these guys and start, you know, placing them by hand where I want them. Now there's also seamless patterns that you can kind of drop in and be done with it. But I like to just kind of get in there and you know, distress this thing out. So with the brush tool active, I'm going to select this bottom one. And you'll see this has kind of got like a t-shirt fabric texture. And just make sure we're painting with black. And then with my pen that I just dropped, we're going to start brushing this in. So I'm really going to scale it down. You don't want to go too big with your distressing. But, you know, keep in mind, prints, as they age, they're going to degrade, especially in areas where there's kind of like fading and this would print in halftones, and over time those halftones, they're tiny little dots. The ink's just gonna lose its bond to the fabric. So in faded areas, you're gonna see a lot of cracking and removal. So keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and we're just gonna kind of crank that in there. And I'm basically just kind of tapping, and you can kind of go crazy, just hit it in different areas, but pay attention to the edges. Over here I could take advantage and really blow that out as far as distressing. But be careful in like faces and stuff. You probably want to try to hold on to those the best you can. So I'm just going to kind of keep cranking this stuff in, really just doing a lot of removal here. And then be sparing where you're kind of sprinkling stuff in. Maybe even want the text disappearing, and then move on to my next one, and you'll see you can get a little preview. Just scale it down, and certain brushes you're not going to want to be too generous with. Just use it sparingly. And then other areas you're going to want to maybe even paint stuff back in, but just using a separate one so it's not the same pattern the whole time. So like right here, I don't like that spot, so we'll just kind of come in here with white and keep painting it till it's gone. So you could obviously work in reverse, just bash the whole thing with a bunch of stuff and then come back in and use white to erase it out. So let's go back and get back to erasing here. So I feel like I want to add some bigger cracks here. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Scale the brush size down. And really just kind of crack the heck out of that side. Same with the side of his head. And just kind of hovering the outside edges here. Oop, that's a little too much, so I'm not going to completely erase. I'm just going to kind of come in and keep hitting it until it looks right. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe a little more over here. Yeah, so it's looking pretty darn good. And we'll move to another one. Make sure we're painting with black. Size it down. Now this one I think you want to be careful with. It's like a fold, if you went like straight down, shirt being folded or something like that. So, throw it in an area that you can take advantage of, where it's not like a focal point. Maybe something like right here. Really just knock that whole thing out. And then I've got some really rough stuff, so if you want to come in and really do some punching stuff away, get rid of some of this text, size it down, come in here. Pretty good. And then do the reverse. Come back in and see what you get when you add it back in. Alright, let's try this here. Paint back out. Yeah, and some of these you can't really see the preview, but they're there. They're gentle. I definitely want to be careful with it. All right, that's looking pretty good. So yeah, I mean that basically covers it. So we, just to kind of recap, we went through initially. We made a sketch just to kind of place where we thought our assets were going to go, and just put a little time in, find good images, and put a game plan together. It's going to make you move a lot faster. So after the sketch, we moved into actually placing things, masking out edges, and really getting them in place. After that, we hopped into the text, and for the sake of the tutorial, just kind of hopped in with some style. So this is stuff that you can easily make yourself if you want to, but if you want to save some time, I will have the product up for you to purchase, and there should be more of those over time. Just as these brushes too, these are actually available now too if you want to kind of get in here. And yeah, that essentially covers it beyond the selective color stuff, going in and adjusting all these colors and trying to give it that feel of a bootleg. So I guess maybe one last thing that we can touch on before I let you guys go is, going in and actually doing the individual adjustments. So like, skin tone here, you would have it in the group. Now that the design's done, I'll show you actually, before we head out, is grab this mask and just drag it onto the original and turn off the rasterized. turn on the original. You'll see the masking looks a little weird. It's because of the way it's processing the alpha on a live layer that has a color adjustment applied to it. But, you know, you could easily come in here and, let's see, not find that one. Let's find, yeah, I think it's in this group. So here, I feel like his skin's a little too cool. So you could easily come in here with a selective color adjustment and or like a hue and saturation, for instance. If you just want to do the overall thing, clip it to the layer. I believe that's our layer. Yeah. Clip it to the layer and then target the original color. So I think it was like, let's see what the yellow does. No, that's not doing it. So maybe it's in reds. Yeah, and you can see in the reds, we can basically bump up the reds. We can expand its influence if we want and push it more towards the yellows. And you kind of get away with being sloppy because the way bootlegs, they are. That's exactly what they're doing. You know, the separations weren't fantastic. So same thing here. Let's target this middle one here, and we'll do another hue and saturation, see what we get with that one. Clip it to the layer so it's only affecting that one. I'll target the yellows, and we'll just kind of drop them down. We can always add in a little more saturation, cool it off a little bit, and you'll see we're kind of harmonizing this a little bit better. So you can do those at the individual level. And then when you're done, once you duplicate and then rasterize, the mask is going to look a lot better. Yeah, as you can see here, the preview looks much better. Just keep in mind, you can mask the live editable groups and stuff. I don't like how when you're masking and doing this distressing, you're going to want to do it on a rasterize later, and then maybe move it back. Yeah, and then rasterize again, but always keep that editable version. But yeah, that basically covers it. Okay, so with all the adjustments done now, let's put the final touch, which is basically get it on a mock-up and see how it looks. So I have a kit available on the site. There's also a free shirt available, but this one's like a vintage shirt kit. You know, it's kind of sunwash stuff. So the way the kit basically works is you're going to have an artboard for art. You're going to have a back and a front, and this is where you're going to place your artwork. And what's really cool about it is it's interactive. You could actually do your designing here, and it'll land right on the mock-up for you. So I'll show you here. For instance, on the back, if I click the back artwork inside of this symbol where it says place artwork, so I'm in the back artboard right here. You can see the back location guide here. Inside the symbol, which is essentially like a smart object in Photoshop, but it's live. It's so much better to me because you don't have to save, you don't have to do any of that stuff. It's just ready to go. So here's that artwork, and you can see as I move it around, it's going to move around on the mock-up. So I have it basically placed in the spot. So if you hit it at the top, it's going to hit the right spot on the shirt. Then it's up to you as far as sizing. So let's just turn that off, and then I'm going to paste in the artwork. So just make sure it's inside the symbol that says place artwork here. And then you can use the guides that we have in the document. They're not going to show up on the shirt. They're just there to kind of help you and place the location. And yeah, once that's in there, you can see when you zoom in, so it's, you know, there'll be a decent resolution here for your previews. You're good to go. So you could still have that selected. The other cool thing is it works in reverse. So if you're moving it, if you go into the artboard, find the location where the artwork is, you can do the same thing there. So with that back symbol selected, go into it, find where the design is, and you can move it around there too, and it'll actually move it over there. So my advice is do the moving here. I've got some guides for you. And yeah, that honestly, I feel like that looks pretty legit, and I think it would print pretty well. And also, as some news in the future, I'm going to be a source for prints. If you guys are interested, you're building out some brands, and you need to get some affordable printing done, we do fulfillment and transfers. So if you got a heat press and want to do it yourself, you can. And if you guys want to actually get some, you know, fully decorated garments, you can do that as well. But yeah, that basically covers it. So this is our, you know, vintage bootleg rap tee for Eminem. We found some really awesome older stuff of him, you know, with the old hairdo and what have you. And I think it came out pretty good. So if you guys got any questions, please hit me in the comments section or join the Facebook group, Pixel Mosh Pit. I try to answer some questions there too, whether that's like DM or comments or posts. And yeah, if you want to support the channel, liking goes a long way. That helps with the algorithm. So yeah, if you like and learn something, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications. Yeah, and if you really want to financially support the channel so I can, maybe upgrade some equipment, and making a purchase on pixelmoshpit.com really does go a long way. Family definitely thanks you for those of you who have already purchased and continue to support. So yeah, like I said, I hope you guys took something from the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.